Radio Voice Italia, Philadelphia.
Class is now in session. Christopher Columbus University is on air from Philadelphia and broadcasting worldwide from within the shadow of Marconi Plaza. Radio Voice Italia is proud to present a recurring segment with civil rights author, professional researcher, and renowned Christopher Columbus expert, Robert Felix Petrone, Esquire.
Buongiorno tutti and welcome to Radio Voice Italia's Christopher Columbus University, where we teach you the truth about the greatest hero of the 15th and 16th centuries, Christopher Columbus, and update you on the international efforts to preserve Christopher Columbus's legacy. I'm your host, Il Professore, Robert Petrone. Today on our Christopher Columbus University segment, we have a news update. In Newark, New Jersey, as reported in episode 11, Mayor Ras Baraka tore down a Christopher Columbus statue in that city's Washington Park and replaced it with a statue of a less prominent civil rights figure, Harriet Tubman, who only participated in one Underground Railroad, while Christopher Columbus initiated and conducted 3 Underground Railroads to free Tainos from captivity from the Carib tribe and from the disobedient Spanish hidalgos. But as it turns out, Newark had a second Christopher Columbus statue that was also removed, thanks to the bigotry and ignorance of Ras Baraka. Buddy Fortunato, formerly a member of the New Jersey General Assembly, chairman of the Committee on Independent Authorities and Commissions, and vice chair of the Transportation and Communications Committee, and currently the editor of New Jersey's Italian Tribune, is the son-in-law of a former New Jersey State House photographer and White House photographer, Ace Alagna, who had purchased the Italian Tribune in 1968. Mr. Fortunato's father-in-law, Mr. Alagna, spearheaded the erecting of a second statue to Christopher Columbus in Newark, which rose about 16 feet high from the base. When Mr. Fortunato heard that Mayor Baraka intended to take down his father-in-law's statue, he assembled a crowd of watchers to protect the Newark statue. And at 1 a.m., the mayor sent a truck and a group of workers to take down the statue. Sound familiar to my fellow Philadelphians? Mr. Fortunato attempted to purchase the property, but the city wouldn't agree to the deal. So Mr. Fortunato preemptively removed his father-in-law's statue and put it into protective storage. More on that story soon. You can read more about the Columbus Heritage Coalition, the Christopher Columbus portfolio, the fate of Columbus's fleet, and other Columbus-related articles at the Italian Tribune's website, ItalianTribune.com. That's Italian Tribute, rendered as one word, .com, and searching for the term Columbus in the search box. So, ladies and gentlemen, today, this week, really, because there's a little bit of a time lag between when I record and when you hear it for the first time. But this week, from when I'm recording, is the week 528 years ago that Christopher Columbus set sail from Europe for the first time in search of his all-water route to Asia. I'm just thinking, just imagining the sense of excitement he, in particular, and the rest of his crew must have had, the wonder, the anticipation, and little did they know how they were going to change the world. It's just amazing. 528 years ago this week. And this week we have something equally exciting. We have well, let me give a proper introduction, because I'm honored to have as a guest on today's show Mr. Lou Gallo. He's the immediate past chairman of the New York State Commission for Social Justice, which is the anti-defamation arm of the Order of Sons and Daughters of Italy in America. And on that board, Mr. Gallo is also the subcommittee chairman on Columbus education. And Mr. Gallo also serves as the national consultant for the Order on Christopher Columbus. Mr. Gallo, welcome to Radio Voice Italia's Christopher Columbus University. It is a great pleasure to have you here today, sir.
Buongiorno, il mio amico.
Yes.
Petrone, absolutely. We'd love to be here. Two kindred spirits on a very important subject.
Indeed, sir. Now, by profession, you were a social studies teacher until you retired in 2001, is that right?
That is correct.
Yes, and where did you teach when you were a social studies teacher?
I taught in a school district in Eastern Long Island in New York. It was called the Longwood School District, which in and of itself has its own history, very interesting local history. I taught Long Island history too as one of the elective courses, and it's a very fabulous area in that sense. And
Very interesting.
For 33 years, I taught every secondary grade from 7 to 12. And that's about it. As far as that, I'm out of the business 20 years. And that is serious because, as you know, as we will go through in the program, I'm not happy with the present social studies curriculum.
No,
I would say that the teachers, from what I'm hearing and what I'm seeing. And that's, as far as I'm concerned about Columbus, that's very, very serious.
Yeah, oh yes, absolutely. Now, in 2013, you became the chair of the Commission for Social Justice of the Orders of Sons and Daughters of Italy and America. And could you tell us, I did mention earlier in the introduction, that's the anti-defamation arm of the order. Can you explain to our listeners what that means exactly?
Yes, exactly. The CSJ is the anti-defamation arm, and we do two things in tandem. One is we fight bias and bigotry against Italians and Italian Americans. And as a corollary to that, we present a positive image of Italians and Italian Americans through education and public relations. And really quickly, for instance, if there's something anti-Columbus or the old typical mafia stereotype, we do email blasts, okay? We do rallies. As far as the education portion, I have a program called History in a Box. And from this, I pick out various artifacts from this box. I've done 76 of these presentations in the last 7 years. I'm telling you, it's a big hit. I do it in the schools, and basically the theme is you are surrounded every single day of your life with Italian innovation and invention, and you don't realize it. And something's very, very common. And so we also do culture festivals, and I mean not just the usual feast. At least I'm also in charge in our district, Suffolk County, in Eastern Long Island. I do these culture festivals in the district. And we invite authors to come in and peddle their wares as far as Italian history. And these are Italian American authors too. And we promote them. And we have lectures on various aspects of Italian culture. So we really do our best to not only fight the negative, but also to demonstrate the positive nature of our heritage and our legacy.
Que bello. Okay, so then you became a member of the Educational Council. And what does that mean exactly?
Okay, well, that really is a spin-off from my days when I taught social studies. I was a member of a professional organization at 3 levels: the Long Island Council for the Social Studies, the New York State, and the National Council. And that particular council, and those councils, would, we discuss changes in the curriculum, textbooks that are important as far as the curriculum, and also different methodologies, the latest in those methodologies, and so forth and so on. Now, when I retired, I kind of got out of that, away from it. When I became the chairman, and now as the immediate past chairman of the CSJ New York State Executive Board, one of the members on the board is also a former teacher of social studies, and said, for what you're doing in Columbus, you should get back into that council. So I rejoined the Long Island Council as a retiree for the social studies.
Oh, God bless you. Now, you mentioned earlier the school system, how they're approaching Christopher Columbus. What was your experience with the New York school system regarding how they were teaching about Christopher Columbus?
Okay, one of the first things we did when I became subcommittee chairman, appointed by the present chairman, is we took a look at the textbooks around. And they ranged from, giving you a little squib about Columbus to a whole page about Columbus. Some of it was negative, some of it was well balanced. I mean, it ran the panorama. But we come to learn, and the gentleman who was on the board with me, Vincent Marmarali, who's also a social studies teacher, we came to learn that Texas and California, they mandate the textbooks that are going to be presented in the classrooms in those states. It's state-oriented, where on Long Island, it's district-oriented. School districts decide, and departments in those school districts decide what textbooks they're going to use. And that's serious because Texas and California are geared to what they're seeing and hearing. And with the teachers going on and on about this anti-Columbus material, obviously they're going to gear their textbooks accordingly. And you're talking about thousands and thousands of textbooks being sold to those school districts in those 2 states. So I would say that's one thing we saw. Another thing we saw was that some of the members of the order would come up to me. Oh, you should hear what my grandson is saying, and my granddaughter is saying about Columbus. And Then I did some research, and I came across the Zinn Education Project, and Howard Zinn, wrote that disreputable textbook in 1980 that really maligned everything about American history. He has a whole chapter on Columbus. And when I read the testimonials by the teachers who endorsed this project, I was appalled. And when you look at his material, the material doesn't tell the whole story. It's all skewed one way. And it was very disturbing to see teachers all over the country, who are actually leaning on the Zinn Education Project, and I think it's very, very serious. And then locally in the school district out in Eastern Long Island, Southampton, in 2015, one of the members out there, told me, "Hey, wait till you take a look at this local weekly headline." And there it was, the Southampton School District, had convicted in a mock trial, convicted Columbus of murder. And when I did some investigation and spoke to the social studies teachers there, they said, I asked them, what sources did you use? And they used the two worst sources you could find. Bartolomé de los Casas, who many historians have criticized him for being hyperbolic, and Francisco de Bobadilla, who did a reign of terror on the island of Hispaniola, as you well know, when Columbus wasn't even there. And therefore, a lot of what was going on there was attributed to Columbus, and it's not true.
And so this was this article that you read. This was about seventh graders. They did this mock trial, and they convicted Columbus of murder based on these on this lesson from the Zinn Education Project, right?
Right.
Now, so tell us about Mr. Farina and the presentation that you gave.
Okay, what happened was when that weekly came out, the first thing I did, and Rob, I must tell you, when I get any of these calls, I pick up the phone that minute if I have time, and I do, and I call the superintendent of that school district. His name is Scott Farina, Italian American, and that bothers me too. And I insisted that I make a presentation to those students. And I asked them to invite our local daily, known as Newsday, the local weekly, known as the Southampton Weekly. There is a reservation there, the Shinnecock Indian Reservation. I asked them to come, the school board, the central administration, teachers, whatever. And they came. And when I gave that presentation, 1 hour at the time, I fielded questions. And the first questions, I was appalled by what they asked. Is it true he sicked dogs on them? No, it's not true he sicked dogs on them. In fact, the dogs were used as a weapon, so to speak, in case of an attack. And you didn't just wantonly go there and attack dogs. Secondly, did he rape women? No, he didn't rape any women. That is not true. The one story, and again, we don't know the full facts, is when Michele Ticunio supposedly had grabbed a Carib woman and literally, based upon modern terms, sexually assaulted her. Okay, again, Columbus didn't do anything like that. So it started to make me think, what are these teachers, what did they come up with? So when I talked to the teachers, they said, yeah, well, we had a kid represent Columbus, and we had all this material. And in this group, of course, was Shinnecock Indian teenagers. And so the kid who was done Christopher Columbus had hardly any material to go by. And as I told you, the sources they used, I was critical of those sources. And when I said to them, why didn't you contact us? We would have given material. You could have done the balance. And when I did finally send it to them, they said, oh, that's terrific. But when I emailed them back, I said, it's too late. You already planted the negative seed in their brain. Now we're going to try to resurrect it? No, damage has been done. You should have showed both sides at the same time and let the kids decide.
Right. You can't unring a bell, as we say.
Especially with young people like that,
Right.
Fair. Let you do a fair presentation.
But after you gave this presentation to the kids, and this was a presentation you had done before you started doing your current costumes presentations, right. What happened? What did the kids say after your presentation?
Yes, the Newsday, the local weekly, the local daily, pulled the kids off to the side. I sat on the periphery. I didn't involve myself. And they asked, well, what did you think of Mr. Gallo's presentation? All kids. And instantly said, this was a fantastic presentation. He had the facts. I think we should keep Columbus Day in this district because this group was trying to get rid of Columbus along with their teachers. So, I think so.
So the kids admitted they were wrong in convicting Columbus.
Well, yeah, they kind of thought, well, it was like a light bulb flashed in their brains. Whoa, there's another side to this. And I didn't say actually they admitted they were wrong, but they said, now that I've learned something, it's important and significant that we keep Columbus Day instead of going to Indigenous Peoples Day on that day, October the 12th, whatever.
Yeah, it's amazing how facts turn on the light bulb, isn't it?
Absolutely. And, Newsday didn't even write that. They basically said that this ogre from the Sons and Daughters of Italy in America, the kids took him on and they brought up all this negative stuff. It was ridiculous. The Weekly was balanced. They said, the things that I said, what the kids were saying, and they left it up to the reader to decide.
Oh, wow. So journalism is not yet completely dead.
Right. And I'm not happy with the teachers, the way they're proceeding on the matter at all.
No, not at all. I always ask this question of my guests. Who do you think is currently behind all this slander of Christopher Columbus?
Well, to me, this whole issue, and I've discussed this amongst members of the executive board too, the CSJ, to me is a microcosm of what's going on in this whole country. You know what's going on in the whole country. Nobody has to be educated. And this is a small part of it. And I'm going to tell you flatly and bluntly, and I've said it publicly, that this is a Marxist-inspired cultural revolution that is attempting to destroy our European and Christian heritage. And the sad thing is, this has been going on since 1980, when Russell Means from AIM, the American Indian Movement, proclaimed that in order for America to live, Europe must die. And then on the same year, Zinn wrote that disreputable textbook. And again, the die was cast. Berkeley was the first city to change CD, Columbus Day, to IPD, Indigenous Peoples Day, in 1992. And again, the rest is history, as you and I know. All right. So this time they're well funded, though. Places like organizations like the Alliance for Global Justice, Soros's Open Society Foundations, Act Blue, Thousand Currents. These are all organizations that raise lots and lots and millions of dollars to support left-wing causes. One of them, of course, is anti-Columbus. And it's Marxist-inspired when you start tearing down statues like Frederick Douglass. You can't tell me black people are turning down Frederick Douglass. Absolutely not. Okay, so this is something foreign, this is something subversive, and it's very serious, and America has to wake up about what's going on as far as the challenges to the principles upon which this country was founded.
Very well put, sir. In episode 5, I had Rafael Ortiz on as a guest. He describes himself as a Puerto Rican author of Taino descent, and he wrote several books about Columbus. Yeah,
Yes.
Those of us who are Columbus experts know each other. It's a little.
Read all his books too. Absolutely.
Yes, his books are great, and I asked him that question, and he said, point blank, Marxists and other anti-American groups. And then in episode 10, I had Andre Domino of the Italian American One Voice Coalition on. I asked him that question. He said, Marxists and other anti-American groups. And you're saying the same thing, and I say the same thing. And I'm glad to hear you say that, because my listeners hear me say it in almost every episode. And I want everyone to know, it's not just me saying this. Everyone directly involved in this fight knows it, because we see it. The Marxists aren't hiding who they are. In fact, they're quite vocal about who they are.
Exactly. Only because they're more well funded. And let me tell you something very interesting sidebar here.
Yes.
Every so often, Tony LaStella is a host of a program out in Seattle, a hotbed of leftism, called West Coast Italian Radio. And he told me, the last segment I did with him a couple of weeks ago, he actually told me for the last 5 years, he has contacted these revisionist groups and asked them to come on his show, give him the primary historical sources, give him the secondary sources, go toe-to-toe with Lou Gallo on this whole thing, and let's see what you come up with. And in 5 years, he got not one reply.
Not one.
Excuses. And I said, It's really simple. Because they have no sources.
That's right.
And when you put our argument against theirs, we'll win every time.
Every time. And that's exactly what I said in the last episode, just before this one. I talked all about arguing with the Columbus detractors, and I said the exact same thing. When you call them to the carpet and say, come debate me, bring your sources, that's when they fall silent. Exactly. So now you continue to do these presentations for kids, and now you do them in costume. Can you tell us about that?
Yep, in costume in the first person. And I actually become him. It takes me an hour to do it, to go through, and I debunk every single misconception about this. And so it's called Christopher Columbus, or Cristoforo Colombo, debunking all misconceptions. And I start, Rob, with even his appearance. If you look at some of the things that they say about his appearance, it's not true. And then I go through, I debunk about the slavery and the genocide, the rape, the attacks, all this jazz, and I pinned the blame on 13 people. I've discovered 13 people, and usually when I do an email blast, I say to these people, "Have you ever heard of Diego de Arana? Have you heard of Rodrigo Escobedo, Francisco de Bobadilla, Francisco Roldan, Adrian de Mojica, Alonso de Ojeda, Nicolas de Ovando, Francisco de Bobadilla? Have you heard of these people?" And they go, well, those are the people that caused all the problems.
That's right.
Columbus was never there when they went off on their reign of terror. So they've attributed all the abuses of colonialism on one man, and that's totally unfair. And if you take Zinn and his characters, you and I know from reading the sources, they take a clip from here, a quote from there, a quote from this source, they put it all together, conjures up a negative image, and right away the guy's a torturer, an invader, a barbarian, and whatever else.
Right.
It's all bunk. It's all bunk. Every single bit.
Bunk.
And if you read, and I would say to your listeners, read Mary Grabar's book. You read it too, I read it. Debunking Howard Zinn. Not just Columbus, but what he says about our American involvement in World War II. What he says about Vietnam. What he says about the Civil War. What does he say about North versus South? It's all Marxist inspired to destroy and bring down this country. That's what he's all about.
That's exactly right. Now, what upcoming costume events do you have in the near future?
Well, as you know, the only one I have is the in-person conference on October the 29th in Long Island, the Melville Marriott, it's called, on a major thoroughfare on Route 110. And 800 social studies teachers, I'm told, will be there. I am one of 30 presentations. I am shocked that they accepted my proposal because it is a left-wing group, basically. So they're going to get some education that day. And I will field questions and answers. And I'm going to set up a booth. We have a lot of brochures from the CSJ regarding Columbus. We're going to have Mary Grabar's book there. I got a whole box already waiting. I have, I will deal with these teachers and tell them one basic thing. And the theme of the conference is social studies in an age of crisis. Well, you're right. This is a crisis, particularly about Columbus. And you must do the right thing as a social studies professional and offer all sides. And our side should get equal attention with the indigenous people side, okay? And this is what they're not doing as far as equanimity is concerned. And this is what I'm going to insist. And like I said to you before, Rob, if you put our argument against theirs, as you know, it's well documented, we're going to win. As it showed in those kids in Southampton School District when they got those facts. Instantly, they said we should keep Columbus Day. And the successes we've had at CSJ on Long Island with Sag Harbor, upstate Williamsville, which is a suburb of Buffalo, New York, where we converted the thinking there and we got CD, Columbus Day, preserved or reinstituted there. So, you know, once they get the facts, people realize, you know what? This other stuff is bunk. It's necessary that we keep Columbus Day as part of our heritage.
Yes. Now, that presentation you're going to give in front of the teachers, will you be in costume for that?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I'll be in costume. I'll have my banner. I got the Christopher Columbus banner, Christopher Columbus the Discoverer, and I get into it. It's very dramatic. I get passionate, and especially when I debunk the misconceptions, I get really passionate and animated because I'm trying to prove to them I wasn't there. I didn't do these things. You know the old expression, when the cat's away, the mice must play, and that's what happened.
Yeah.
I mean, either in the interior trying to establish what they call factoria, which was the outpost, the trading outpost, or he was hopscotching under contract, the Santa Fe capitulations. He was under contract, the hopscotch to look for new lands, or he was back in Spain organizing a new voyage. And in those instances, the reigns of terror would occur.
That's right. Yes. And do you have any costume events in front of students coming up?
Not yet, because the pandemic, obviously. Before that, I have done 18 presentations. I did, including New York and Connecticut, mostly Italian clubs, KFCs, and lodges. I'm dying to. That's why this conference is so important, because I will gain a foothold. And once I gain a foothold, and I will tell them about our Columbus website, and I would say to your listeners, go to columbusthetruth.org. columbusthetruth.org, and you will see Mr. Petrone stuff on there. We got 58 pages of your serial. We've got slideshows, videotapes. We got other guests. We got the 4 historians. We got me. We got all kinds of eclectic sources that people can draw from to really understand the true nature and the true legacy of Christopher Columbus.
That's great, and I'm very honored to have my work featured on your site.
Because your stuff is well documented, and I would say that to the listeners too, that Rob does a great job, and is of course supplemented by his Columbus University programs too. So we're getting the word out, and we need to.
Thank you so much, sir. It's very kind of you to say, and that's high praise coming from someone like you. If any of my listeners would like to contact you about giving your costumes presentation in their school district, where can they reach you?
Email me at LJ Gallo, Gallo, at Opton Line. That's O-P as in Peter, T as in terrific, O-N Nancy, line, all one word, optonline.net.
.net. Okay, LJ Gallo at optonline.net. Well, thank you so much, Mr. Gallo, and I just want to say that I really admire what you do. You are not just an educator, sir, but you are a hero in my eyes. You're a hero for the truth, and you're a hero for Western culture, and may God bless you every step of the way.
Thank you so much, Rob. I appreciate it.
Thank you, sir. That's today's class. For more news, articles, and resources about Christopher Columbus as the first civil rights activist of the Americas, icon of Western culture, paragon of Catholic virtue, and greatest hero of the 15th and 16th centuries, visit preservecolumbus.us. That's Preserve Columbus, rendered as one word, .us, and post a little note of appreciation for our webmaster, Tom LaCosta. And Mr. Gallo, could you give your website one more time?
Yes, that would be columbusthetruth.org. And by the way, your programs are also going on there too, as well as your serial.
Thank you, sir. I'm your Professore, Robert Petrone. A presto!
The Jersey Shore has fun and sun, sand and sea, and Radio Voice Italian.